Seasons of mist and mellow fruitfulness. As autumn leaves start to scatter, there is the small matter of looking back and having a natter about the English test summer. Well, a lot of the chatter has been about us at the end of our tether, with the weather, not flash or clever, has been a bit of a bummer, with little respite. Let's not talk, or let's balk, at the mad blight of bad light with no play in the middle of the day. Despite the floodlights belching bright, dumber and dumber. Well, what can you say in hindsight? There's got to be another way. It's a slight which really doesn't help. Test fight or plight. It just isn't right. A sorry sight. And apologies to Dylan, the sage of his age. The cheek of just a wee tweak by some geek freak, well, me. Because after what we've seen this week, got a fright, so to speak. Let's not be tight. Weak or meek and go gentle. That would be detrimental. And the future bleak. So let's be sleek, experimental, seek to peak. Or it might be good night. So no denying, to get the game flying, we should be trying to rage against the dying of the light. Well, back to the cricket, and as fans and journos alike protest at the avaricious plans and price spike of a test ticket. Well, hard not to stare at the mayor of so many seats left bare, even at the Lord's lair. Is this a warning that the hoity-toity exclusivity isn't fair, and punters clearly don't really care to pay the fare for taking on lesser teams without the flair on the field of dreams, fretting that it seems we're getting nearer to spawning a new dearer era dawning, where we're not fawning, but also not forlorning, with no fears about missing the morning and lunchtime beers with your peers under the awning. I'm not the only one to snitch about the hitch that is becoming just for the rich. What about out on the pitch? Well, that terrific titch, duck it, you can't ditch. Our cheeky monkey and funky chunky, spunky cut and sweep junkie does bewitch. Must be picked. As again scratch that itch, flick the switch, dispatch the cover point, who was again tricked and got another stitch. No prudence, just boom or bust, impish impudence. With the bat from the bucket hat, duck it, no faking, us shaking, then every chance taking, no ball forsaking, in his run for fun raking and making. A reminder, he's not a grinder, never a drag or lag, always bet on this snag. On the blag, with his sewag swag bag, on a veranda bender, a freaky peaky blinder, streaky as bacon, a fave for every diner. Well, what is much finer than our trippy Mr. Whippy with a 99er, turning the bowler into a whiner, giving them a metaphorical shiner. Then you've got to have a riff on Jamie Smith, our new Lord of the Ring, King of Biff, who flashes, bashes, and dashes, seductive, productive, offence or defence, got the touch, no pretense, so much common sense, never tense, hence he could be immense. With the gloves, looks composed, never seriously exposed, smooth as Philly, swanky in the groove, even though he is quite lanky, still in full flight, not being a silly Billy and just saying this willy-nilly, but got the sight he might not just be a leading light shining bright, but our own homegrown Gilly. Tutti Frutti Rooty has been majestic, mesmeric, not just riding, but striding up the list of all-time heroes. History crumbling, records tumbling, by roots rumbling. So sod the odd catch and the slips fumbling. That balletic transfer of weight allows this great to play it so late. Another cover chord and spate. A heavenly sigh, the flow from that typical, classical, lyrical elbow so high. Silky triggers on show, that textbook look gets us off the hook. So canny, first rate, who can penetrate every nook and cranny. Another big plus, the fuss over new bus Gus. A perler twirler plucked off the shelf. So many wickets shoved, he must be still and forever will be pinching himself about the wealth of his stealth, being in such rude health, far more than Jimmy's elf. The meteoric rise, a slight surprise. But no one denies, with the skills he plies in his spells, with what he offers and supplies, swells our coffers. All eyes on the Ashes prize, guys. Desperate Dan, chances fleeting, got his turn, but browbeating will grumble at how and why he's eating a cow, or is it a mistake and humble pie? Discern with the return of the Mac, Zach back will change tack and Lawrence will get the sack. Given the blunt shunt from up front, with notable concern, but this opportunity he did burn and spurn. Will return to the pack for the scores he did lack. A bit of a worry, sad but sorry ducky, plucky, but rather mucky, if also a tad unlucky. What about our new nipper, if not quite ripper skipper? Ollie can be the tastiest pud on the dessert trolley, but also Wally, serving up a right dolly to gully, flicking from folly to lolly to golly. Not giving him a verbal volley, but it's like blockbusters. Give me an F, please, Bob. Fidgety, flighty, frenetic, frantic, frenzied, feverish. skittish, half right, at the sight as Pope departs, sleepless night, booze for those stuttering, spluttering stars, or choose a fraught animal caught between the headlights. Oh, and don't mention the stress and tension of his DRS mess. I suppose time will tell. At its best, well, you can't fail. Still makes your heart swell. Reminisce about how we missed the bliss and that nut kiss of Ian Bell. What about the new left arm slinger, a ringer who no one knew, straight from the farm debut? There's been no dull lull for Josh Holt. Just has the mole on how to coal. Not being droll, but ignores the chores of the whole rigmarole of tours. A high tower with barn door power. Not a trial allowed for a while to flower. More smile than glower, his run up a mile. As tall as a ship's mast, the ball flies fast past the batter's skull. He is only 20. One's a tutor, a suitor for the future, and hatches and matches, enough pools of craved and depraved, shaved rough patches. So Bashir rules, does his stuff, got the tools, unlocks their latches, falls them through the air, those in-close catches, despair and devil-may-care snatches, and dispatches batches aplenty. Oh, and nice to see how Ollie Stone, seed sown, has grown and flown with the skills he does hone. Well, don't flog, but give a dog a bone. We've known he's been a slog to get out of the injury-prone bog. Could moan and groan, but not his tone. With no niggle, got his wiggle, and wants to make the spot his own. Well, why not? Poor old Woody. Tears, body broken, fears awoken. Stone is not a like for Woody. Well, how could he? But not just a token bike. Look at the Speedo or Snicko Spike. But at the end, we cannot pretend for us to get hooked on a truly great summer does depend of late on how you rate the visitors' booked fate. It can't be overlooked, can't poo-poo, how the Windies and Sri Lanka, as we saw, were so undercooked, not raw, but blue, who sometimes were not just dismal, but abysmal. Although Comindo Mendes is the flair heir, a teeny genie in the jar, the wizard's apprentice of Kumar, oh, and on a par, the latest star exemplar, Sri Lanka run spanker with not just a dash but a big splash of panache. Nisanka, the hero glowed, grinning, hitting a ton, and the winning run. Boy, did they toil for the joy of only their fourth victory on English soil, which England then tried to spoil rather than foil, and aren't exempt from criticism, which has started to boil due to the easy-to-see contempt which flowed, a complete lack of respect they showed on day 3. We expect better, deserve to be beat. The Basball mix didn't explode, but as they tried to goad, got in a fix, did implode, not being shirty, so poor. 156 in how many overs? Just 34. Couldn't have been dafter, it was dross. They simply didn't give a toss. Deserve their loss, no laughter. After what we observed, can't comprehend and won't pretend to defend. A distasteful, almost disgraceful end, which did offend. Bridges to mend. But still sigh, is it the end of our adore sport? Is it really nigh? Or is that just sandwich board fraud? Otherwise, guys, why? Options explored. Was it flawed? Own goal scored by the deplored vices of having to buy tickets, us bored with them taking the mic with a sly hike of sky-high prices that have already soared, which helps us understand so many an empty stand? Or do we admit that it might have also been a bit that some fans decided, had plans to picket test cricket, chided and derided it for being too one-sided? You can't really blame, because it does slightly maim the fame and aim of the game. Not as deaf without the heft, left bereft, foolish, even ghoulish. With Test cricket already frazzled, rattled, and embattled, well, it just wasn't quite the same. More tame and lame, less razzle dazzle. Simply, sadly, more often than not, didn't live up to its name, which for a game with so much to give is just such a shame.